So before I get into this video, I realized that about halfway through I didn't actually talk about ammunition. So let me talk about ammunition real quick before we get into the other stuff. So later in this video I will say that I have an SKS with a gun. I know there's someone. But let's talk about the ammunition aspects. There's different kinds of ammunition out there that you need to use in order for a firearm to be effective in doing what it does. So there's ammunition for different types of shooting in rifles and handguns. Shotguns as well. You got burn shot, you got buck, you got slugs, whatever. You got multiple different types of ammunition for different types of shooting sets. So I don't own a shotgun anymore, but to each their own. I'm not the biggest fan of them. They are good for what home defense or up close and personal. The spread factor of the pellets. Anyways, I'm not really going to talk about shotgun shells because like I said, I don't own any, and I'm not the biggest expert on shotguns. So that being said, shotguns out of the picture for me, not for you, for me. So you got F&J's Full Metal Jacket. Those are good long distance traveling bullets. They have a good aerodynamic to them. So they are good for, like, let's say you're going to shoot up to 1,000, 2,000 meters, 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, or between about a mile. That you're going to want your F&J. That aerodynamics means it's going to go further, more accurately. I would also recommend using F&J for target practice. F&Js are just really common. For defense, I would recommend using hollow points. In hunting, obviously, you have lead tip, soft tip points. It's going to hit the target, go in, and mushroom, and it's not going to go out. Usually, it should stay inside of the animal. A hollow point can go in the target, unless it's like a fragmenting point. Then a hollow point is generally going to have a massive exit wound. I know this. I've shot a coyote with my SKS with a hollow point, and that was the first time I shot a coyote with it. That was really the first thing I shot anything with a hollow point. Entrance wound, pretty small entrance wound. An exit wound blew my mind, like blew the animal away. So, yeah, hollow points, very deadly. Very, very deadly. I don't think even the military uses hollow points because of what they can do. So, hollow points, they are what they are. I have plenty. I also have plenty of F&J, and I have plenty of soft points. So, again, F&J, good for long distance and or target practice. Soft points are good for hunting. Hollow points and or fragmenting are good for like defense or engaging a hostile combat situation. Things are getting bad. People's mentality is getting bad. People's minds are in a very bad place these days. And in my opinion, things are only going to get worse. So, what do I recommend to do? Well, right now, let's look at what's going on. We have more and more people, more now than ever, that are more in favor of assassinating political figures of opposite sides. And this is on both sides of the aisle. This is both Democrats and Republicans, both conservatives and progressives, or liberals. And it's something that we really, really need to think about. Now, what can we do? Well, if things, shit gets real bad, shit starts happening, which is a very good possibility, especially when the older crowd dies out, the ones who are more against or who are more opposed to violence in such a manner. When these people, start dying out, start fading away, there's going to be an ungodly amount of people who are in favor of extreme violence, which is only going to lead to civil war. And I believe we can see this in our lifetime, in the foreseeable future. Possibly sooner rather than later. I don't know. I can't predict the future. All I can do is say how you can be best prepared for such situations. Now, what can you do? Well, right now, I would suggest, if you have the ability to buy a firearm, buy a firearm. Don't just buy a handgun, buy a rifle. Now, what do I suggest? I'm partial. We're all partial. We all have our likes and dislikes. Me personally, I don't like AR-15s. That is my personal dislike. I don't like them. I don't like the style. I'm not against them. If you have an AR-15, good on you. Go for it. Buy it. I'm just personally not for them. It's not my thing. I go on to my Russian heritage. I am more of an SKS, AK kind of person. SVD-40, Dragunov, you name it. I am that kind of person. That's what I like. I would also suggest buying an SKS or an AK platform because they are cheaper than the AR platforms. I have an SKS with a detachable magazine. And I do not recommend the detachable magazine on an SKS because you can't really use stripper clips anymore with that. And with the original SKS, see, when I got my SKS, I was a teenager. It's a Russian SKS, made in Russia, or made in Soviet Union. It was made in like the 40s or 50s. Obviously, it was originally the 10-round internal mag. But when I got it, it was a detachable magazine. I was a teenager. I thought, hey, bigger mag, cool. No, that's actually false. I would rather have an SKS with a 10-round internal magazine and a fuckload of stripper clips. That is me. Stripper clips are easier on the SKS to load or reload with a stripper clip than it is to reload with a mag. That stripper clips obviously don't take up anywhere near the amount of room that a magazine would, especially for the SKS, because they're rather old, kind of awkward, and it isn't the most practical thing to reload a magazine with the SKS. If you know, you know. It's kind of like the AK, except at the top it's not straight. It has like this kind of like an L-shaped thing. You have to kind of like go in like that or go in like that, and it's very weird. It's awkward. Don't recommend. If you want an SKS, please get one with a 10-round internal magazine and load a fuckload of stripper clips with it. That's going to be your best bet. SKS is also pretty damn reliable. I have had literally zero issues firing my SKS with its reliability. It's always been pretty accurate. And obviously, it takes the AK-47 round, the 7.62 by 39 cartridge. It's really good. It's a really good round. I love it. Very devastating. It's effective for what you need to do with it. So I recommend buying an SKS with the 10-round internal magazine only. Don't get one with a detachable mag. That is my high recommendation for that. I do not have an AK. platform rifle yet. I really do want one. I would recommend getting an AK platform rifle because they're more inexpensive than compared to an AR platform. Yeah, I know certain ones, might be real cheap compared, but you get what you pay for in the firearms community area. So, you pay $200 for an AK, it's gonna be a piece of shit. Don't do it. You pay $300-$400 for an AR, it's gonna be a piece of shit. Don't do it. So that's why I recommend Soviet era weapons or Soviet platform weapons, because they're going to be as a whole cheaper than your American made or Italian made, French made, British made. They're going to be cheaper, and they're still pretty damn reliable. What I have is the SKS, and I have a Mosin Nagant. Mosin Nagant is again a 10-round or 5 or 10 round internal magazine. I don't remember what the internal magazine for the Mosin Nagant is, because just like the SKS, it is a detachable magazine. It is the Archangel platform Mosin Nagant. So it takes the 7.62 by 54R rimmed on Russian. It is a rimmed round. It is very good. It is still in use today, and I believe it is the oldest serving round on the planet. So that is how proven it is. So I have the Archangel stock on my Mosin Nagant. That's how I bought it. I like it. And the magazine is actually fairly easy to load. So if you want to go, if you want to go what my loadout is, then go for it. Go ahead and get the Archangel stock for the Mosin Nagant. Mosin Nagant is, if you don't know, is a bolt action rifle. I have a 9130 Mosin Nagant. Yeah, it's one of the oldest rifles. It's one of the oldest serving rifles, I believe. Very accurate. The only, it's got a few downsides. It's very heavy, especially if you have the original 9130 wood stock and everything. It's a heavy rifle. Like I said, it's a bolt action rifle, and it's got a very interesting safety features on the actual bolt itself. And what you do is you kind of like pull it back and you twist it like that, and it prevents it from going forward. The hammer from going forward. That's what it does. It's very old, yet a very effective safety. You do have to have a little bit of muscle to do it. I mean, but if you're going to use a Mosin Nagant, you're going to have a little bit of muscle anyways to lug that beast around. And then I have a 9mm pistol. It's my only non-Soviet weapon. It is Italian, so I don't actually. The only American weapon I have, other than this, which I love, the only other American weapon that I have is, I think it's American. It's a crossbow. You know what? Now I'm actually gonna have to research now to see if that crossbow is American. I don't want to say the name of it now in case of me looking like a complete dipshit. But it's a very strong, very powerful crossbow. I love it to death. I've had it for quite some time. And, I definitely recommend a crossbow. Especially for, stealth reasons. It's very quiet, and it's got retrievable ammunition. So, what I have is, I have a Beretta 9mm. I have an SKS, definitely detachable magazine. Don't get one. Get one with the internal. And a Mosin Nagant 9130 Archangel stock detachable magazine. Scout scope, pretty good. I'm looking at zeroing it in at 1 kilometer or maybe even as much as 1,500 meters. And then I have the V crossbow. The crossbow has the ability to take down game. It's rated to take down like bear. That's how good. That's how expensive. I spent a lot of money on my crossbow. If you're gonna buy a crossbow or a compound bow or anything like that, it is again one of those things where you get what you pay for. So I don't even want to say how much money I spent on my crossbow. It was definitely a lot more than all of my firearms combined. So, yeah, crossbow, definitely high up there on my recommendations. So guys, again, this is prepping for like without rule of law, the end of the world as we know it, kind of things, And the end of the world as we know it isn't, everyone dead, kind of, zombies are walking. No, it's not that. It's the end of the world as we know it. So, modern civilization, it can be the end of like modern civilization as we know it. It could be reverting back to the 1800s, 1500s kind of thing. Even as something like a civil war. The country is, North America is split up into multiple different countries, kind of thing. And at the end of the world, Teotihuacan doesn't have to be, annihilation. It could be, like I said, splitting, a country as big as, let's say, the United States and Canada splitting up into multiple different countries. That could be Teotihuacan. It really could. And it's the end of the world as we know it. That includes countries and land masses and shit. So, prepping for that kind of stuff, obviously, your firearms, weaponry, self-defense tools, that is going to be a very, 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 very important thing to prep. I love my firearms. I love my weaponry. One thing that I don't have on the truck right now, I really should get it back on the truck. It's one of my machetes. It's a Kukri machete, really good, really dependable. I've used it for a lot of things. But one other thing that I really want to get is a katana, not a shitty American-made. I'm not knocking American-made, but I want a real like Japanese katana, something that's going to be able to do what a real katana can do. Those are expensive. That's something that I really want, and that's something that I would actually suggest getting. For a lot of people, getting a real katana and a good machete, maybe even like a sawback machete, where the back of the machete is a saw blade. That way you can whack away brush, greenbrier, all that kind of stuff with the sharp blade. Then you can cut small limbs or maybe even larger limbs with the back of the machete with the saw blade. With the saw blade, that would be a very good prep to have. And then obviously 2 is 1, 1 is none. So don't just buy one. And I wouldn't even say buy 2. I'd say buy like 3 or 4, maybe even 5. That way, because this stuff does wear down, and we don't know how long an event is going to last for. So definitely buy multiple of these melee type weapons, or melee tools, like a machete, knives, katanas, blades, stuff like that. Buy multiple of them because, again, we don't know how long an event is going to last for. So you're going to want to have multiple of them. That way, wear and tear, especially on a machete, you're going to be whacking shit with it. The blade's going to dull out. So obviously you're going to want to have a way to resharpen the blade, but sometimes these tools they get beat beyond repair. So 2 is 1, 1 is none. Have 5 or 6. That way you have backups for your backups for your backups. Like I always say, have a backup for your backup for your backup. Have multiple backups for your never have just one or something. You know, unless it's something extremely expensive or something that's really, you know, harder to come by or just more of a hassle to buy. So like firearms, I'm not going to say, you know, oh yeah, go buy an SKS, but don't just buy one, buy four. No, I'm not going to say that. That's ridiculous. That is, you know, getting unrealistic price-wise. You know, like on the firearms, don't just have one firearm. I'm not saying buy multiple SKSs, buy multiple AKs. No, maybe buy an SKS or an AK, and then buy a long rifle like a Mosin or something similar to like a Dragunov if you can get one, SVD-40, something like that. You know, obviously, you know, have a handgun or two. But I'm not saying buy multiple of the same firearm. Buy multiple firearms, just maybe not multiple of the same. I'm not saying that you can't. I'm just not recommending that you do for reasons of financial, you know, finances. Unless you're Bill Gates or Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos and you've got, you know, millions and millions of dollars to blow on whatever the hell you want. Prepping for events like this, you're going to want to have a way to clean and filter water. So, guys, I just got done, 17 minutes of talking about firearms. Now, firearms are good, don't get me wrong. Firearms are excellent to have. They are, in my opinion, a must-have item. But, death in an SHTF situation is not going to be more commonly caused by combat. Yes, having firearms and weaponry to defend yourself or engage hostiles is going to be very important to have. It's, you know, engaging hostiles or combat situations are not going to be as prevalent as some people might think. So the main cause of death in an SHTF situation is going to be diseases, illnesses, sickness, you know, dysentery, drinking the wrong water without cleaning it, filtering it, boiling it. That could kill you. You know, you could survive. Imagine, you know, you're in a combat situation and you survive a massive combat conflict. Go down to the stream, drink some water from the stream, and then boom, you end up dying from projectile diarrhea or something. That is more likely. You're more likely to die in SHTF from diarrhea than you are in combat. So you need to have a way to filter water. You need to have a way to clean water. Get a Berkey or something. If you can't afford that, get tablets, you know, purification tablets. Life straws. You may or may not support the company Life Straw, but, and you know what, that would be your decision. But regardless of a company's views or politics, their end product is still effective. Just because you want to be like, oh, I don't support them because they're woke. You know what? That's the kind of attitude that can definitely freaking kill you in the end, guys. Don't have that kind of attitude. You know, buy the damn Life Straw, because if you don't, then buy something very similar. But you need to have something to that effect. You know, you need to have something similar to a Life Straw. If you are so adamant against buying an actual Life Straw, buy something similar. Guys, you need to have a way to clean drinking water. You absolutely need a way to clean drinking water. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. 3 days without water and then you're dead. That's in ideal situations. Don't even get me started on getting stranded out in the desert. That, you know, less than 3 days, you're gonna be dead. So you guys, you need to have a way to clean drinking water. I promise you need ways to clean drinking water. Other things that you need to prep for, obviously, like every prepping channel out there on the planet, you need food. 30 days without food, and you're 3 weeks without food. Not 30 days, 3 days or 3 weeks without food, guys, you're gone. Well, maybe it is 30 days. Yeah, anyways, regardless, 3 weeks without food. Ideal situation. You're not, and that's not using a ton of calories in a day. That is you sitting in bed, not eating for 3 weeks, and then you'll die. So in bad situations where you're using a lot of calories, you're going to reduce that 3 weeks by a lot. So again, guys, food is extremely important. It's going to be about just as important as water. Maybe not quite as important, because you can go a lot longer without food than you can water. But, the daily calories that you intake plays a massive role in how you're going to function throughout the day. So you need a way to get food. So what I would recommend doing, hey guys, this is shit hit the fan without rule of law. You're on your own, kind of thing. For God's sakes, please get a manual meat grinder. This is something that it hooks to the table. A clamp. It's got a crank it like that. They are difficult to do sometimes. And then you put the meat in the top, and then you grind it down, and it comes out in string form. And guys, please get a manual meat grinder. Don't get an electric one, but don't rely on that electric one. You need a manual one. Everything that you have in your preps should be manual. I'm not saying, okay, let me take that back. Everything in your preps doesn't need to be manual. Some of it can be electric. But for each of those electric items in your preps, you need to have a manual item of the same thing. You can get a manual, or you can get an electric meat grinder, but for God's sakes, you need a manual one as well. Saying that, I'm thinking there might be somebody named Emmanuel that's watching this. No, I'm not talking about them. You need a hand crank meat grinder, or a hand pump for a well or something. I have an electric pump for my well at home, but if the power goes out, then there's no way to get that water from the ground into my house. So if you're like me, you need to have a backup manual hand pump for the well, because like I said, water is extremely important. Guys, I live in the desert, so water is even more important for me than it would be for some other people. So hand pump for a well, manual operated meat grinder, shit like that is, you need this kind of stuff. That way, you go out, you go hunting, and let's say you bag a deer, you bag an elk, or something, you bag a bear or something. I don't know. I don't freaking know. I don't know where you live. I don't know what you got. But let's say you bag an animal and you bring it home. You gut it, and then you quarter it. You got your meat out of it. But the thing is, with that meat that you have, and for God's sakes, I hope you didn't puncture the stomach. But for that meat that you have, you now need to cut that meat up and store that meat. And, you know, I'm sure you're not going to just want steaks out of everything. So, you know, you're going to want to be able to grind that meat up and do different shit with that kind of meat. So, you know, for me, it's going to be a manual meat grinder. You can do a lot more with ground meat than you can just like steak form or something like that. You know, a solid chunk of meat. That is quicker to cook, so, you know, get that grinder that you need it. And, you know, guys, this next prep item, I've talked about it plenty of times before. And y'all know me, I do mention more expensive items, but guys, this item is worth taking a loan out. Get a freeze dryer. Get a freeze dryer if you can. If you have the ability, you know, I'm not saying you need to take a loan out, but I'm recommending you do what you can to get a freeze dryer. And I think it's the oil pump that you want as well, so it's going to last you a long time. Freeze dryers are expensive, and it is an important investment, a massive investment for yourself and your family. Because freeze-dried foods, you know, they're expensive, and there's a reason those freeze-dried foods are expensive. And then, you know, freeze-dried foods last a very long time. So let's say you get, you know, you do get an animal, you bag an animal, and you can freeze-dry the meat from that animal, and you can freeze dry vegetables and shit, you know, that you can grow. And, you know, you can have this stuff last for a very long time, because what I'm now about to transition into is storing your food, storing your meat. Now, obviously, you don't want to leave fresh meat out at room temperature, because it's going to spoil really quick. And when it spoils, it's spoiled, it's gone, it's rotten, it's bad, you don't want to use it. So, you know, there's many different ways of food preservation. Dehydrating it, smoking it, different things like that. You know, if you live in an area where you can, you know, seal the meat in an airlock bag or something, and you have natural refrigeration, like you live in a place where it's cold outside, then, you know, you can put that meat into those airlock bags, and you can put that into a container and then leave it outside, you know, in a container where, you know, bear's not going to be able to open it or something. Or maybe you have a cellar that, you know, underground, you know, stays cold underground. Maybe you can put it in that, you know, there's different ways of primitive refrigeration. But my best thing to say to you for refrigeration is, or, you know, pre-modern era food storage is to go research how to store your, you know, how to store food, or how people stored food back in like the 1700s, 1800s, before modern refrigeration was a thing. Because, you know, obviously people back then, they stored food. It was different than how we do it now. You know, there's dirt cellars. You know, these dirt cellars stay colder than you know, room temperature on the ground level. So research on how to properly store food in a primitive way. Smoking food, dehydrating it, whatever. You know, food preservation is going to be extremely important. Like I said, you don't want your food to spoil. That's one reason why so many preppers out there are like, buy canned food, buy dehydrated food, and buy freeze-dried food, because they don't need to be stored in the refrigerator or the freezer. They have a long-lasting shelf life, and they're pretty much non-perishables. So you need to find a way that you can turn your perishable foods into a non-perishable. So freeze-drying it is an excellent way. Dehydrating it extends the shelf life. canning it if you can extend the shelf life. Canned meat, dehydrated. What do you think jerky is? So, the next thing I'm going to talk about is growing and or raising your own food and or hunting or fishing. Prepping. A lot of preppers out there are like, well, we need to put back a lot of canned food, put back a lot of you need to put back a lot of non-perishable food that we bought. Well, now let's go to the next level of buying food, and that is growing food. Now, everyone's region is different. There are different grow zones for plants. So first thing you need to do is you need to figure out what grow zone you're in. You need to determine what grow zone you're in. That'll tell you what you can and can't grow and when you can or cannot grow certain food items. So once you determine what grow zone you're in, then your next step is to buy heirloom seeds of whatever vegetable or fruit item that you want to plant, grow. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be heirloom seeds. It just needs to be a seed that is going to be able. You're going to be able to harvest the seeds from whatever plant you grow. So, whatever plant you grow, you need to be able to harvest the seeds from that plant to replant again next grow season. So, make your garden. And then protect your garden, because different critters are going to want to get in, and the human beings are not the only creatures that need to eat. One of the big things is you'll get rabbits or deer, depending on where you live. You'll get rabbits or deer. Some other pest. It's going to come over and pretty much be like a normal person during an SHTF situation. Be like, oh, look, food, I'm going right for it, I'm going to take it. So, you need to protect your food, your crops, however you can. It's against people. One universal way that you can protect your crops, if you have electricity, is going to be an electrified fence. It's going to keep out a lot of things, including people. Now, it can be a deterrent for people, let's just say that, because there are people that will go through an electric fence. They will, some people will withstand the pain from an electric fence, depending on the power of the fence, the voltage. So you need to find a way. Electric fence should keep out deer and shit like that. Maybe have some, wire mesh or something similar to that. Keep out smaller critters like rabbits, squirrel, mice, things like that. One of my other recommendations is to have like a raised bed for your crops or your garden, because have something that's not really connected with the actual earth itself. I would say have like a lining between your actual garden and the ground. This way it'll help keep out worms. It'll help keep out any kind of pests like that. So have a raised garden, and that should help in that aspect. And when you're coming to protect your crops, all that wire, the raised garden bed that's protected underneath and around the sides from like creatures in the earth or creatures from the dirt. It'll the wire mesh will protect from smaller rodents like creatures like mice, rabbits, squirrels, shit like that. Larger fence like maybe barbed wire, razor wire, and or electric will help for larger animals such as deer, moose, elk, whatever. know, if you're going to, you know, if it's a SHTF, TOTWAPI, WROL situation, you know, firearms or weaponry, you know, would help defend against a Homo sapien invasion of your garden, let's say. Because protecting your gardens is going to be extremely important, because it's going to be your long-term food source. And that's what you're going to need, is you're going to need a long-term food source. So preps should not be your primary source of food. Your preps should be like green energy. Green energy should be your primary source of energy. It's a supplemental energy source. Your preps should be supplemental. Should not be your primary source of whatever that is. Unless it is like a firearm, a katana, machete, knife, something like that, a backpack, you know, purification tablets. That obviously you cannot make in the wild. And I guess you could, you know, it's a lot of effort that you don't need to be wasting. You know, just when you're in an SHTF situation, you're going to be using a lot of calories, and the more calories you use, the more food you're going to need to intake. So, you know, don't use calories unnecessarily if you don't need to, is what I'm saying. You know, obviously there's a lot of preppers out there that are like, you know, when shit hits the fan, wild animals are going to become scarce, or if not scarce, impossible to find, because everyone is going to hunt, you know, for food, this and that. You know, maybe so, because, you know, history shows during the Great Depression, animal scarcity, you know, rose. A lot of people hunted for food during the Great Depression, and understandable. There was also a lot less people back then than there are now. So now we have a massive population of people. So let's say, not everyone is going to hunt for food. You know, you got a lot of people that they don't even know how to hunt. And, you know, that's a lot of city folk. A lot of people don't even know how to hunt. And a lot of people don't even know how to fish. So we have to take that into accountability. A lot of people don't know how to hunt or fish. How many people with a firearm are actually going to go hunt? Not every one of them. Not 100% of them. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to hunt and fish, you know, when the shit hits the fan. There's going to be a lot of them. But I don't honestly think there's going to be that many that are actually going to do it, because a lot of them don't even know how. You know, how many of them are going to kill themselves in the process because they've never handled a firearm and they're trying to go out and hunt? So what I'm saying is, there's going to be people that are going to go out and hunt and fish for the first time and try to gather, you know, food. But not everyone is. So, yeah, wild game, especially, you know, in the vicinity of cities, is going to be reduced. But when you get into more rural areas, you know, I don't think the normies are going to go, you know, way out in the sticks and go hunting for food way out in the middle of nowhere. Like where I live, I will expect game to be lessened, but still existent because of where I live. So that's something that you should take into accountability as well. So not everyone is going to hunt and fish, but, you know, multiple people are going to. Guys, remember, when you are hunting, gunshots are bad. Don't puncture the stomach. You know, really don't puncture any of the intestines. I'm trying to pass somebody, I let somebody on the interstate, and now they're matching my speed. They are a literal shitbag. I hate these freaking people. And it's a motorhome, so he probably has zero clue what he's doing. Anyways, don't puncture the gut, don't puncture the stomachs, anything like that in the room to me. That's one reason why a lot of people are like, you need to practice your skills right now. So I'm not saying go shoot an animal out of season without a license, but practice your skills. If you can, like in Texas, there is no season. I think it's open season on hogs, wild hogs in Texas. So if you are in a legal area to do so and you have the ability to take out a wild hog, nobody's really going to say anything to you. Practice with like gutting that and using the meat. So guys, if you are going to do this, obviously take what you can, usable. Take all the meat that you can and cook it and turn it into a stew or something. But practice gutting that animal and don't puncture the stomach. Get these skills. Gutting an animal is going to be a harder skill to practice than others because you are taking the life of an animal, and there are seasons for different animals, there are licenses for different animals, and there are certain places that you can go hunting. So obviously do it in a lawful area, do it legally, practice these skills, because let's say it is WROL, without rule of law, or should have banned, something like that, and let's say you do pick up a firearm for the first time and you do kill a deer, you are able to kill a deer, but let's say you got a gut shot on the deer, and let's say you actually do manage to track it down, and you find its carcass, you do gut it, and let's say you accidentally puncture the stomach and you spoil the meat on that animal. Well, guys, that animal is no longer good to use, and you're already in an SHTF situation. So now that animal has gone to waste because you have no skill on what you're doing. You don't really know what you're doing. So you need to practice these skills right now, and it's so important that you practice when times are good, rather than after SHTF happens. When an SHTF happens, it's not the time to practice the skills. Yes, you're going to be able to have time to practice certain skills in SHTF, but not all of them. You need to get all of them done ASAP. Right now, go down to the lake, go fishing. Get a fishing license first. Get a license. Right now, times are good. Law is still in effect. I'm sorry. Get a license. Go fishing. Learn how to gut a fish. Learn how to scale or descale a fish. Learn how to do all the things right now before times are bad. Get a license. Practice these skills. That goes for every skill. Not every skill out there you need a license to practice. You can practice farming right now, and then you can use the stuff that you practice with. You can use your crops right now when times are good as well. So get out, practice planting, harvesting, practice identifying different edible plants and non-edible plants. If you want, study mushrooms and learn to identify edible mushrooms, and learn to identify what you can eat on mushrooms and what'll kill you on mushrooms. Practice. So important to practice these skills right now. I cannot stress enough on how important that is, because after SHTF, that is not the time to start learning how to use these items. So, if you have a tent, you bought a tent from like Cabela's or Walmart even, or Bass Pro or something, wherever you get a tent, LLB or whatever, if that tent is still in its original wrapping and you've never gone camping, you are not doing it right. You need to open that tent up. You need to learn how to set that tent up properly. Go camping with it. Have fun with it, Don't do too much wear and tear on it, Or maybe you can get like a wear and tear tent that you can use camping, and then you can get the more extensive tent and then keep it in good condition and use that more expensive one for when shit gets bad. I'm not saying that you can't have all your preps in its original packaging. Maybe if you're gonna do that, have that as your backup prep for the original item that you know how to use. Let's say the tent is a big one. Not everyone knows how to set up a tent. So get these items and practice with them, and then maybe get spare items, and then maybe you can keep that in its original pack. Know how to use it. It's so important that you know how to use these items. Now, guys, I know this is my absolute longest video I've ever made, and it's gone on long enough. But it is extremely important. This is probably my most important video I've ever made. Probably my most down-to-earth video I've ever made. Guys, get the things. Practice with the things. Learn the things.